In this video, I'm going to give you my predictions and breakdown for UFC Vegas 69. We'll talk about spots that we like, spots that we don't like. We'll talk about betting opportunities, prop opportunities. You're going to see all of that for all 11 fights. Make sure you watch until the end. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. Last week was a fun week. A lot of the favorites swept. Modestas Bukauskas came through. And there were some questionable judging decisions along the way, which seems to happen every card at this point. It's ridiculous. I pray that they get it together. One day they'll get it together, but we have 11 fights to work with. I'm not going to waste another second of your time. We'll start right at the very top, and that's going to be the main event with Jessica Andrade and Erin Blanchfield. Andrade is stepping in on short notice for Talia Santos. She just fought a few weeks ago against Lauren Murphy, absolutely destroyed her. She couldn't miss with her punches. She looked crisp, she looked technical, she looked powerful as always. And she also stuffed 15 takedown attempts from Lauren Murphy, and she's going to need to lean on that this week against Erin Blanchfield, because Erin Blanchfield is running through the division faster than shuttles run from the church to Golden Corral after Sunday service. She's going to bring a dominant grappling style, and we saw that last time out against Molly McCann, where she was able to get her down with one takedown attempt, absolutely squish her, ground and pound, Kimura finish, easy work. Before that, we saw her face and overcome some adversity against JJ Aldrich, who is no slouch. She snatched up a guillotine after losing the first, say, 7 minutes of the fight, but ultimately she wins the fight, and before that she steamrolled Miranda Maverick, taking her down 7 times. She also racked up 12 minutes of control time in that fight, and she's going to have to lean on that heavily this week, because if she, like most fighters in this division, are forced to stand with Jessica Andrade, she's going to get smoked. Because if you look at the experience difference, the power difference, I don't see any way where Andrade isn't getting the better of the striking exchanges. But I do worry for Andrade, and I worry about how she's going to respond to the grappling from Erin Blanchfield. Because yes, on paper it's good, 73% takedown defense, but we also saw what 85% takedown defense looked like in a light heavyweight fight last week. Alonzo Menafield was supposed to be a brick wall and found himself on the mat every round. So I don't want to look at that takedown defense and think, oh, she's probably not going to get taken down, because even if we look at her last handful of opponents, you have Rose, Chookagian, Cynthia Calvillo, Amanda Lemos, Lauren Murphy. All of them chose to stand with her, except Lauren Murphy, who was kind of forced into it. But you see this loss here to Valentina Shevchenko, and in this loss she was taken down 7 times on 7 attempts, and they all came from the same position, that body lock position. She was really getting tripped and thrown all over the place, and then Valentina finishes her in the second round with elbows. Now obviously there is a difference between Valentina Shevchenko, one of the best we've ever seen, and a very young Erin Blanchfield. But when you look at that fight with Valentina, what made her so successful in the grappling was that she committed to it. All these other women were trying to strike with Andrade and mix in takedowns when they saw an opening, but Andrade is small, she moves well, she puts a lot out there with her hands, she's powerful. She's not going to give you those openings, you need to create them. I think that Erin Blanchfield is going to commit to these takedowns, and she's going to create her own openings. She's going to earn these takedowns and earn top position. I think it's going to be a very one-track mind kind of mentality this week for Erin Blanchfield, where she's going to look for the takedown. If she doesn't get it, she's going to keep looking for and keep looking for, because she knows she can't stand with this woman. I would not recommend it. And I think if she is able to get that body lock position, then she's going to be able to get on top, and I think she's going to be able to ride out position. And even if Andrade starts getting up, I think she's going to be able to remat her if she can keep her hands clinched, just like Valentina did. And I don't think Andrade is going to be able to keep up with that pace for all that long. Andrade is in phenomenal shape, and she should be able to keep up with it. But again, she also just fought a couple of weeks ago. Your body peaks during training camp. She put together a career-like performance against Lauren Murphy. She was probably having fun, drinking, eating, celebrating. And then to come back in a main event spot just weeks later against somebody who's going to put a pace on you and have you working from start to finish, that's tough for me. So I do like Erin Blanchfield to win here. I do think that she's the real deal and somebody that the UFC can push to a title shot, some fresh meat for Queen Shevchenko. But I like Erin Blanchfield to get it done. I think that she finds a dominant position. I think she rains down some heavy strikes, maybe finds the back, gets a rear naked choke. Give me Erin Blanchfield this week inside the distance. Next, we're looking at a fight with Zach Pauga and Jordan Wright. Both these guys are looking to bounce back after taking losses in their last fight. Pauga coming off his first career loss. He was knocked out by Marty's brother Muhammad, and Usman did land that sharp left hook that put his lights out. And on the other side, you have Jordan Wright, who's riding a 3-fight losing streak. And not only is he losing, but he's getting finished. And you know Jordan Wright is a kill or be killed kind of guy. In his last fight, he gets finished by Dusko. Before that, he gets finished by Marc-Andre. And then before that, he gets knocked down in the first round by Bruno Silva. Jordan Wright has never been in a boring fight in his life, and that's because he's looking for the finish from the opening exchange. And honestly, despite despite the recent performances, I still think that the dude is talented and explosive and someone who could have success in MMA at a high level. But the obvious issues, the glaring weaknesses, the durability for one, and the fight IQ. He puts himself in bad positions and his body can't take punishment, nor does he have cardio for 3 rounds. Zach Pauga doesn't have a lot of fights on his record, but he does have a lot of experience in terms of fight time, fight minutes. He has more minutes in the cage or in the octagon as a professional than Jordan Wright does. And it's by a pretty wide margin despite having less than half of the fights. He's also fighting out of a good gym at elevation. He's going to be the steadier guy. He's got the better camp. He's got the superior cardio. And not for nothing, he was killing Muhammad Usman before Usman landed that big left hook in the beginning of the second round. So I do think that's a good learning experience from him. He has taken enough time to recover, and I do think that he's going to bounce back strong this week. Jordan Wright doesn't go to the scorecards, win or lose, and I think that Zach Pauga wins this fight. So give me Zach Pauga to finish him. I'm saying in the second or third round. I think it goes beyond the first, but I don't think it lasts that much longer after that. So the pick for me in this fight is going to be Zach Pauga by knockout, and we'll take a shot on that prop later in the week to get better odds on this big favorite. And you'll see a bet like that and other bets at KunithMMA.com, where I drop the official bets, the DraftKings strategy guide, as well as the MMA data set. And there's a place for you guys to interact, post, DM each other, DM me. There's a lot going on there. Next, we're looking at a fight that I think is way too high up the card. We have Jamal Pogues. He's fighting Josh Parisian this week, and this is a tough fight for me to call because I'm not really impressed with either guy. To me, Pogues is a light heavyweight who doesn't take great care of himself. This guy should be fighting at 205 realistically. He's coming off a win on Contender Series where he looked okay. He threw a ton of strikes, not many of them landed, but he did put a lot out there. He's got fast, crisp boxing, and I like how he finishes combinations with low kicks and kicks to the body, so you know that the fundamentals are there, and that's something that you'd like to see at the heavier weight classes because that's lacking at times. He also fought for a title in LFA. He's 2-0 on the Contender Series, so there are some positives here for Jamal Pogues. And on the other side, you have Brady from DFS by the numbers, and he's coming off a gritty win over Alain Badeau, where he was able to get on top, rain down some ground and pound, and ultimately get him out of there. He recently pulled out of a fight with Chase Sherman due to a heart issue, which is scary, but apparently he's fine now. Josh Parisian does a few things well. He has power, he's a problem when he gets in top position, and he can dig deep when he needs to. It seems like he always needs to, though, because his gas tank abandons him. So is he digging deep, or does he have poor cardio? It's kind of a mix. But I do think that Parisian's the more dangerous guy, Pogues is the more technical guy, so I'm torn here. Now, I don't love Josh Parisian, but the price on Jamal Pogues is way too high. He's not the kind of guy you pay minus 240 for in the UFC, especially not in his UFC debut. So the price is getting better on Parisian. I like him as an underdog this week. Pogues typically goes the distance, and I see that happening again, but I see Josh Parisian doing just a little bit more and being able to steal rounds. Give me Josh Parisian this week by decision. Next, we have a fight with William Knight and Marcin Prachnio. William Knight has that one-shot knockout power, but it diminishes a little bit and a little bit more every minute that passes. And he only has one knockout in the UFC, and that was against Fabio Cherant when he threw a hook with his eyes closed, which that's ridiculous. But Marcin Prachnio is one to get knocked out and knocked out early. He started his UFC career with 3 straight first-round knockout losses. Now, he does throw good kicks, and he does move well, but he's not durable. He doesn't have wrestling to fall back on, and he doesn't have a ton of power to stop William Knight here. Now, they are in the Apex. This is a smaller cage, and you would have to think that slightly favors William Knight because Prachnio has less space to work. But William Knight needs to move efficiently. He needs to cut off the cage. He needs to let his hands go, and he needs to carry his power later. Because Philipe Lins was able to touch him up, Ike Villanueva even took him down, knocked out by slow Mike Rodriguez, Magomed Ankalaev, of course, knocked down twice and finished in the first round by Sam Alvey. This is a perfect storm for William Knight to showcase his power and not have to worry about being taken down, nor does he have to worry about big punches coming back his way. Prachnio's taller, but the reach is similar, and that could work to William Knight's advantage when he's closing distance. So give me the man with the bigger power, the one-shot power, at least on paper, over a guy who's chinny, more of a karate style fighter. Maxim Grishin had a lot of success against William Knight by staying on his horse, touch, move, touch, move, but I don't know if Marcin Prachnio is going to be able to stop William Knight when he closes distance and throws one of those big hooks. So as much as I don't want to pick William Knight because he's not a good fighter, like William Knight is closer to Cali Muscle than he is to Derek Lewis, but I will pick him to win this fight inside the distance. I'm saying first round knockout for William Knight. If you haven't already, please drop a like on the video, comment something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works, and subscribe if you haven't. And if you watch and you don't subscribe, What's your deal, man? And I'm telling you, if we don't get enough likes, Oscar doesn't eat. So if you want his blood on your hands, that's on you. Next, we're looking at a fight that I think is going to divide the MMA world this week. We have Alex Hernandez fighting Jim Miller. I would absolutely love to go with Jim Miller this week. And I say that because of the slick jiu-jitsu, the sneaky, powerful hands, the momentum that he's riding with that 3-fight finishing streak. And Jim Miller is constantly finishing fights that he wins because at this point, he's become a master of getting guys out of there. He's a master of finishing fights. And it's because he's been fighting for so long that he sees opportunities right before they present themselves and puts himself in perfect position to take advantage of them. And that's something that's rare in this game. You only see that out of guys that are like super prospects like Shavkat Rakhmonov or somebody like Jim Miller, who's a master of the sport despite what his record might be. And I could see him hurting Alex Hernandez on the feet here, jumping out of submission, snatching up a guillotine when Alex Hernandez shoots for a takedown, but I don't want to get wrapped up in the recency bias or the legend of Jim Miller because this is a bad matchup. And I say that because of the age gap, the athleticism gap, the power that Hernandez has early, and the type of fight that we're going to get from Jim Miller. Miller doesn't throw a ton of strikes. Just like Hernandez, he doesn't have great cardio at this point, and for Miller, he's nearly 40 years old in this weight class. To put up a 4-fight winning streak seems improbable. And a lot of people look at Alex Hernandez's record and dismiss him. They think, oh, well, he's lost a lot of UFC fights, especially in this matchup against a dangerous Jim Miller. I don't know. But if you just take a second to look at the guys that he's lost to, he loses to Billy Q down a weight class. Billy Q puts a pace on him, puts a beating on him, and Alex Hernandez had success early. And there's no shame in that. Billy Q is a dog. Before that, he loses to Renato Moicano, who is ranked at lightweight. He loses to Thiago Moises, who keeps winning fights, Drew Dober, who's indestructible, and Donald Cerrone in his 3rd UFC fight. So he's not losing to bums. Alex Hernandez consistently gets higher level competition thrown his way because of his potential and the entertaining style that he brings. I think this fight goes under. I like a submission for Miller or a knockout for Hernandez, but I do have to choose one, and I'm going to go with Alex Hernandez by knockout. And trust me, I know that Jim Miller has legendary durability. If you look at his UFC stats alone, look how many times he's been knocked down in his UFC career. It's not many. But I also know all it takes is 4-ounce gloves. Alex Hernandez explodes into everything that he throws, and if he catches Miller on the button, he can put him down. I think Jim Miller has more ways to win this fight, and I think that Alex Hernandez stepping in on short notice makes his poor gas tank even poorer, but I do like the better athlete and the younger man here, so give me Alex Hernandez again by knockout. Now, so far, I've had a nice mix of underdogs and favorites because that's what I think. I think this week there's going to be a nice mix of the two. This is not one of those situations where I'm going to go with the underdog. Mayra Bueno Silva fights Lina Lansburg this week, and this is an easy win for Bueno Silva. She's nearly 10 years younger. She's taken far less damage. She has a massive grappling advantage, and I expect her to use that this week when she wins by submission. She's a massive favorite, and rightfully so, because Lina Lansburg, way past her prime, doesn't defend takedowns well and isn't a submission threat. The only way that I see Lina Lansburg winning this fight is if they spend all 3 rounds in the clinch where she can use her knees and elbows, and I do think that Lina Lansburg is going to look for that clinch, but Mayra Bueno Silva probably pulls guard, finds an armbar from there. 3 of her 4 UFC wins are by armbar, and I expect her to add to that total this week. Now, at times, she does show poor fight IQ. She gets sucked into brawls, and I'm hoping that's not the case this week. I'm hoping she just takes the path of least resistance, because if she is able to get this fight to the ground, she beats Lina Lansburg very easily, very quickly. Give me Mayra Bueno Silva this week by submission. Absolutely untouchable on DraftKings, though, at 9,500. You'll notice that when you start building lineups throughout the week. There's just no room for her. Next, we're looking at a fight with Jamal Emmers and Khusein Askhabov. Jamal Emmers is talented everywhere. He's got UFC experience. He's big for the weight class, good cardio. The fight IQ, not there. That's tough, and the fight IQ can overshadow talent. Just look at Johnny Walker. But on the other side, you have Khusein Askhabov, who is a finisher, undefeated, powerful wrestler. He throws big power on the feet as well. It doesn't show it on the screen right now, but he's 23-0, and I have to say that his professional record has more padding than a hockey goalie. His most recent win is against the guy who currently sits at 3-1. This is also going to be his first fight in 3 years. Plus, he's making his UFC debut. I'm surprised they didn't put this guy on Contender Series at the very least. Now he's going to make his UFC debut fighting for the first time in America against a bigger man with a wrestling background and higher level experience. So this one doesn't really sit sit right with me at all. On one hand, you have Jamal Emmers, who's clinging to a roster spot. And on the other, you have Khusein Askhabov, who has fought no one. And he brings with him a ton of question marks. So I just wonder what happens in this fight if Askhabov is able to get him down. Does he get him out of there early? And what happens if Askhabov shoots for a takedown, Jamal Emmers stuffs it, and then he's like, yeah, I'm still here, what's up? Because if he does stuff these takedowns, it forces this guy to work. Askhabov has not seen the judges' scorecard since 2016. So I'm torn on this kid, I really am. And I feel like he's either going to be Khamzat Chimaev or Albert Duraev. Tough call for me either way. My mind may change on this later in the week, but I'm going to take another dog shot here this week on Jamal Emmers. Again, last week was nearly a clean sweep with the favorites, and if judging was better, it'd be even closer to that. But I think there's a solid mix this week, and I like Jamal Emmers to pull a big upset. Next, we have a fight with OSP and Philipe Lins, two much older heavyweights here, and I think this is ultimately going to come down to who has more gas in the tank late in this fight. I don't expect a ton of volume from either side. I could see a lot of clinching against the fence, leg kicks from the outside, a lot of looking in the mirror. OSP looks like he's moving in slow motion nowadays, and even fought to a split decision against Shogun last year, and we saw how bad Shogun has looked toward the end of his career. Philipe Lins is coming off his first UFC win against Marcin Prachnio, where he was able to get takedowns, control Prachnio, and show off a slightly better gas tank. My slight lean is Philipe Lins just because of the output, the cardio, the willingness to mix in the grappling. It just seems like at this point OSP doesn't fight with much aggression. He moves backward a lot, he's looking to counter, and he's clearly more comfortable grappling than he is striking at this point, and I don't see Lins leaving a whole lot of openings for him to have a lot of success on the feet. Philipe Lins, for what it's worth, has really good balance, good experience, and somebody who's not going to overextend himself and get caught. I see Philipe Lins getting out ahead early in this fight and OSP having to play catch up, but getting tired too quickly to have a real big impact after the first round. And OSP is a perfect example of somebody who is fighting not to lose versus trying hard to win. And being in the UFC for so long, you know his show money is a lot, so he seems fine losing at this point. Like, you see some younger guys in the UFC who are giving it everything they have to win these fights so they can get their 12 and 12. OSP is getting like 130, 150, 200 grand just to show up, and if he loses, whatever, I made a lot of money. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if those are the exact numbers, but you get what I mean. I don't think that OSP cares all that much because there's no path to the top of the division, nor is there enough time given his age to do that. I think he's fine with whatever the outcome is. I like Philipe Lins to win this fight. I do think it goes over. I wouldn't mind you taking the over, but if you want to get more specific, give me Philipe Lins this week by decision. Next, we're looking at a fight with Nazim Sadykhov. He's fighting Evan Elder this week. Sadykhov's making his UFC debut. He's got decent power, decent output, and he's on a 7-fight winning streak. Evan Elder made his debut in the UFC last year, up a weight class against Preston Parsons, and he survived. He gutted it out of some tough positions, but he had no answers for the grappling, really. He was just able to stay alive, get out of the submissions, work back to his feet a little bit, but Evan Elder was taken down over and over. Nazim is looking to grapple here, and he can stand and bang with Elder if he wants to, and I think that's what Elder wants to do. He wants to stay on the feet. That's where he had success in his debut, but Parsons isn't a great striker. He's fairly one-dimensional. Nazim can seemingly do both. Now, neither of these guys have faced great competition up until this point. I'd give the slight edge to Elder getting the UFC debut out of the way, especially up a weight class. So I wouldn't be surprised if either one of these guys won, considering that there are a lot of unknowns, but I will go with Nazim to get it done here because of his wrestling. Very close matchup on paper, but I am going to take Nazim to win this fight by decision. I can see them trading on the feet. Nazim changes levels as Elder's throwing a big hook. He's able to get the takedown, stay on top, and ride out the round. I think it'll be close. I see a split decision coming, or a 29-28 decision coming, but give me Nazim to win this fight. Next, we're looking at a fight with AJ Fletcher. He's welcoming Themba Gorimbo to the UFC. The Ghost is a big favorite here, and it's for good reason. He's young, powerful, athletic, explosive. He's a dominant grappler, and that should serve him well this week, considering that Gorimbo's going to throw heavy punches on the feet, and I could see Fletcher easily changing levels, getting a takedown, and doing good work on top. Now, Fletcher's still looking for that elusive first UFC win after falling short last time out, gassing out against Angelusa and dropping his UFC debut to Matt Semmelsberger. And what I like for him there are learning experiences, because he goes the distance, he's not getting smoked out in these fights, he's winning rounds, and there are just little things that he can work on to improve. Last time out, he gasses out against Angelusa. Now he knows he can slow down, maybe slow down with the big explosive movements. He lost some great positions against Semmelsberger because he was off balance and just trying to do too much, So we know that if AJ Fletcher just slows down the pace a little bit and settles into positions like being in guard or side control and takes his time to posture up or look for submissions, I think he can have a lot of success. In the UFC at the highest level, most of these guys, even though the UFC is trying to get anybody they can, is there a shortage of MMA fighters out there? Like the next two guys that we're about to look at have combined 11 fights total. That's crazy. But anyway, against UFC fighters, at least very high level ones, they're not just going to fall over. They're not just going to fold easily, especially by somebody who's just bringing wrestling pressure. You need to bring a lot more. You need to get to your positions quicker. And I don't think that AJ Fletcher expected that. And that's why he's been running into such difficulty when trying to get these guys out of there. Now against Gorimbo, he's a long, talented guy, but he likes to play off his back. And at the highest levels of MMA, playing off one's back shouldn't work that often. Like there are guys like Yair Rodriguez cinches up a triangle last week. We see Charles Oliveira get triangles and stuff like that. But things like triangles, guillotines, armbar from guard, these aren't things that dudes in the UFC are getting caught with all the time. You might see people throw it up, but they're not getting caught with it all the time. And fighters overall are getting a lot better at defending those kinds of techniques. So give me AJ Fletcher to fight out a solid game plan, sit in these positions, settle into guard, settle into side control, maintain position, win rounds that way. The pick for me in this fight will be AJ Fletcher by decision. Next, we're looking at the UFC debut of Clayton Carpenter. He's fighting Juancamillo Ronderos this week. Carpenter's young, undefeated, strong grappler, decent striker, and I think that he's better everywhere in this matchup, really. Ronderos hasn't won a fight in the UFC, and he hasn't really won any fight since 2019. Ronderos wants to grapple, but I don't think he's the better grappler here, and he's definitely not the better striker, so I see Carpenter winning this fight and really doing it at every level. I think he'll be a step ahead when they're scrambling. I think that he's going to be the better striker. I think he's going to showcase better cardio if this goes late, but I don't think that this fight is going to go the distance. I think that Carpenter's going to club and sub him. I think he's either going to land a high kick or he's going to land a hook, going to drop him, and then he's going to jump on his neck, grab a rear naked choke, and move to 7-0 and continue to inject more talent into a division that's popping right now at 125. So give me Clayton Carpenter to win this week. Give me Carpenter inside the distance. If you made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you want the official bets, you can go to kunithmma.com, create a profile, change your profile picture, your cover photo, put something about you, post on the forum, do it all. And check out all the other features that we have there as well. This is something that we'll continue to add on to and add on to and add on to bring you the best possible experience and also create a community of like-minded individuals so the books will give us what we deserve. I will see you later in the week for final picks.